said smallpox back to anthrax, cure for anthrax.
Die from anthrax.
Cure for anthrax.
It's obviously a cause for concern and requires a heightened state of alert. But it's not a cause for alarm.
Outbreak notices. Outbreak of flu dust.
Outbreak.
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 Outbreak. Outbreak. Outbreak. Outbreak. Outbreak. Outbreak. Global epidemic. Epidemic. Pandemic. Pandemic.
Pandemic. Pandemic. Pandemic alert.
Pandemic.
Pandemic.
Influenza pandemic.
Pandemic. Pandemic.
Pandemic, a global epidemic.
Pandemic. Pandemic. Pandemic.
Pandemic. Pandemic. A pandemic alert.
Swine
flu outbreak.
Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu. Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu.
This strain of swine influenza that's been cultured in the lab.
Swine flu.
Swine flu. Swine flu.
Swine flu. Swine influenza.
Swine flu.
Died from swine influenza. Swine flu. Swine flu virus.
Swine flu.
Human swine influenza.
Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu. Swine flu.
Swine flu. Swine flu. Swine flu. Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu.
Swine flu's here.
Swine flu. Swine flu.
Swine flu.
The deadly swine flu. Swine flu.
This is called a swine flu, but there's genetic evidence also of human and bird components.
The composite virus, with genetic fragments from the North American swine, the Eurasian swine, North American birds, and humans.
Remember, each year we make a new influenza vaccine, and we created a new, test it the same way, and then give it to hundreds of millions of people. And that vaccine is very, very safe. And so we have every expectation that this one will be comparably safe.
Volunteers like Paul Ritterhoff will be closely monitored over the next several weeks. While doctors say the process is safe, Ritterhoff and the others risk several side effects, including fever, allergic reactions, and a remote chance of paralysis and even death.
99% of the public really doesn't even realize that mercury is being used as a preservative in the vaccinations that they're taking themselves and giving their children. So, in essence, you know, they're just blindly lining up to get flu shots.
Of seeing one kid after the next come through my office who I know, clear-cut, has been damaged by thimerosal in their vaccines.
Thimerosal as a preservative has been in vaccines for decades, so literally hundreds of millions of people have received thimerosal.
What? You give them that Baxter vaccination?
They've already had their vaccine.
You give them that Baxter vaccination. You see what happens to your kids. You want them to take a vaccine from somebody who was caught putting two types... Did they get caught putting two types of live bird flu in their vaccines or not? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Did they get caught doing it? Of course they did. It doesn't matter. Listen, wear your Dodgers hat, eat your GMO foods, and continue to be retarded. If you want to kill your kids, that's your business. I feel really bad for them.
Going back to the 1989 schedule, when shots were only 10 and the MMR was on that list. I don't know what happened in 1990. There was no plague that was killing children that we had to triple the amount of vaccines.
What happened after 1989?
The
Why did
they
warranted 26 more vaccines?
Greed.
Are all of them absolutely necessary?
Because they want to make money.
Of course.
An American investigative journalist who claims that swine flu strains have been engineered in 2 universities in the US and Canada says they've been deliberately designed to resist vaccines. Wayne Madsen also says that his so-called nightmare scenario in which swine flu could mutate with bird flu has been suppressed by the World Health Organization for political reasons.
Good, but now you're asking people to get 3. That's a tough sell. Well, Meredith, I think you've hit the nail on the head. This is going to be a public relations, trust your government and your health officials public campaign. Mark my word, you and I are going to be talking about this a lot between now and fall. So I think what the government is likely going to do is urge people to early on get their normal flu shot and then trust the scientists to say the swine flu is for real, get these other 2.
This idea that government has to come to their rescue, I think it's more or less a reflection that we have too many people in government that like the idea that they have to justify their existence. So whether it's in foreign policy, scare the people to death, great fear, then you can do what you want. If there's an economic crisis, scare the people to death, and then you can socialize the economy. In medicine, scare the people to death, and then you'll say, oh, only the government can take care of us. So I think a lot of that is happening, and we're on the move to socialize medicine. So we're scaring the people and saying the only people that can save us will be the government.
While drug companies are gearing up to release the swine flu vaccine, an online British newspaper relates the shots to a potentially deadly nerve disease.
Mail Online reveals the British government sent letters to 600 top neurologists urging them to be alert for Guillain-Barré syndrome after people got the shot. The letter refers to what it calls, quote, the 1976 debacle in the United States when 25 people died from the shot, while only one actually died from the swine flu.
But certainly preparation is underway. We're looking at schools as great partners for possible vaccine programs beginning in the fall to get kids immunized as quickly as possible.
While around 12,000 U.S. children will reportedly receive untested shots of swine flu vaccine, critics say the vaccination trial means the children will effectively be turned into guinea pigs.
Then you need to control their perception, because that controls their actions, and the perception that they want people in more than anything is danger, danger, danger. Because once you get someone in fear of something, they will look outside of themselves for something or someone to protect them from what they've been manipulated to fear. So get them to fear swine flu, they will then say, save me from swine flu, okay,
thank you very
give
much.
us your arm.
Good night.
Right, give us your children's arm. Oh no, oh darling, you must be vaccinated, the swine flu's coming. Pathetic.
The U.S. military is making plans for a major outbreak of swine flu. Troops will be used to help civilian authorities, but there are also preparations being made to protect military forces from catching and spreading the disease within their ranks.
It is an intriguing question. What if the swine flu virus that has killed 61 people and spread to 30 countries was not something that occurred in nature, but was instead man-made in a laboratory?
The argument that the pharmaceutical companies make is very deceptive. The assumption is vaccination is a good thing. In order for it to work, we have to spread it as widely as we possibly can, because otherwise the people who are not vaccinated will start a disease moving through the entire population. Therefore, we must work really, really, really hard to get these things into everybody. In the meantime, every single dose of vaccination that is sold brings them a tidy profit.
I think parents are wondering why every time industry produces a vaccine, it is automatically added to the mandatory list for school entry.
In the United States, the number of mandatory vaccine injections has risen to 36 per child. Each of these injections contains neurotoxins such as aluminum, formaldehyde, aborted fetal tissue, animal byproducts, heavy metals, and many others. What happens to a child's fragile immune system when it's overloaded with these toxins?
Conclusion, these scientists who they've spoken to, that this is a very unusual form of flu because it looks like it is a product of some gene splicing. The flu contains elements of bird flu, 2 forms of human flu, and various forms of swine flu. To them, it doesn't look like this is naturally occurring.
I'm very concerned that a vaccine might be brought out too quickly. There's huge demand for it from doctors and patients, and yet it hasn't been fully tested. We know from the past that these types of vaccines can cause neurological disorders, and there is an overall concern that if the vaccine is used too soon, it may have more problems than swine flu itself.
Having sped up a hearing and ultimately unanimous Senate approval of the Pandemic and Disaster Preparation and Response Bill in Massachusetts, the bill gives the Public Health Commissioner the discretion to respond to an outbreak like the kind going on in Mexico, to close or evacuate buildings, enter private property, isolate or quarantine people, to get and distribute meds and vaccines.
Any penalty if you don't follow the emergency declaration rules?
It can actually get to be a pretty severe penalty, because for each day someone didn't follow a rule, for example, if somebody was asked to be quarantined and they decided not to follow that, it could be a fine of up to $1,000 per day they didn't follow, and also up to 30 days in prison.
Josh Brooks.
Like from there would be nobody left who would believe that vaccines are safe, they protect you, they're harmless, and they're good for you. But we've got 100 years indoctrination that people really believe that vaccines are good. They really will keep me from getting sick. And you know, the FDA and the government wouldn't, it might harm me. And so the undoing that in people's psyche is taking a long, long time. But I think that pretty soon we're going to reach the 100th monkey here. I really do. And I think that there's going to be a 100th monkey phenomenon when all of a sudden everybody's going to go, holy cow. And they're all going to wake up at the same time. And honestly, Alex, I think that's what the government's most fearful of.
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.